Around the nation, TYT Nation, Jeff Waldorf here with you. Welcome to the show. It's Friday. It's the end of the week, and look, we got a show for you guys today. It is, of course, we're going to talk a lot about what's going on in Minneapolis, Minnesota, including, of course, the arrest of a CNN group. So, okay, now they're going after the media. Awesome. Then, of course, we've got Donald Trump calling for violence. This is some seriously fascist stuff. So we're going to talk about that. Because that's that's horrifying. The president of the United States is calling for violence. We also have the Umbrella Man. Who is the Umbrella Man? Well, I'm going to look into it. And we'll see what we can figure out from what we know. We also have Klobuchar. How is her VP chances now? That is the question we're going to talk about. And then finally, some good news. We have universal basic income that is going to go into effect in Spain. So very interesting stuff. We also have some breaking news here. It just happened, just found out right before the show. Breaking news. Former Minneapolis police officer Derek Chauvin has been arrested. So, of course, this is after widespread outrage. We have riots. We have demonstrations. We've got protests. We had buildings, the police precinct, the third precinct, literally on fire, gone. As a result, of course, of the death of George Floyd at the hands, or I should say at the knee, of Derek Chauvin. So he was arrested, and so according to Hennepin County Attorney Mike Freeman, said that Chauvin is now in custody and is facing third-degree murder and manslaughter charges. Subsequent charges, they said, are possible, and charges for the other officers involved are anticipated. And so I know a lot of you are like, okay, look, we got Chauvin, right? Down goes Chauvin, down goes Chauvin. Well, what about the other officers who were there? The three other officers that were pinning him down. And I believe the other officer, the Asian officer, is watching this entire thing go down. Well, what's going to happen to them? Well, it turns out that we might also see some charges against them as well. And so let me read here. This is from USA Today. The arrest comes after Minneapolis residents awoke Friday to smoke billowing, fires burning, and police lining the streets after another intense night of protests. Some violent protests had cropped out across the nation. Demonstrators are anticipated in many cities Friday night and through the weekend. And so that's really kind of all we know. He's facing murder, third-degree murder charges, I believe, and manslaughter. That's Chauvin here. And let's see, Freeman also said his office is reviewing evidence, but say that they do have sufficient admissible evidence to prove a case beyond a reasonable doubt on both a third-degree murder charge and a manslaughter charge. They said that they are, of course, similar to the charges filed against former Minneapolis police officer Mohammed Noor in the shooting death of Justin Damon. Asked why Chauvin was not arrested and held before charges filed, Freeman said, "This is by far the fastest we've ever charged a police officer." So, look, as I've said before, the evidence right there is right in front of your face. The fact that he's on video with his, knee on Floyd's neck as he's, look, in the video, of course, is heartbreaking. You guys have all seen that by now. So I don't want to show it again. It's really difficult to watch. But he's, I can't breathe. I can't breathe. He's calling out for his mother. He wasn't doing anything wrong. We find out, of course, that the entire thing was started over alleged counterfeit $20 bill. So that's $20 that this man lost his life over. Seriously. And so, I mean, this entire story is horrible. And there's video that came out before of Floyd being arrested, being literally ripped out of his car, not resisting arrest. And so he wasn't resisting, he wasn't doing anything at all, and still ends up like it doesn't matter if you comply. Doesn't matter if you comply, you still could end up dead. And so, I mean, I'd say it's pretty clear, but we'll have to see if it goes up for a grand jury and what they end up deciding. And so there's going to be, of course, coverage on this for quite some time in the future. And so we'll have to see what happens to Chauvin. But at least there's one first step of him getting arrested and others possibly as well. And so we'll see if this actually ultimately leads to justice for George Floyd, who unfortunately and look, let me go back to what something that Benjamin Dixon, who's a friend of the show, had said. He said, look, justice isn't arresting George Floyd, or I'm sorry, not George Floyd, Derek Chauvin, right? Justice isn't arresting Derek Chauvin. Justice is not having black people be murdered by police officers. And so he's absolutely right. All right. So that said, let's go into the first story here. Let's dive in. We've got cops going after reporters.
I'm sorry?
You're under arrest.
Okay. Do you mind telling me why I'm under arrest, sir? Why am I under arrest, sir?
Officer's with CNN and he's on the air right now.
That was CNN correspondent Omar Jimenez and his entire camera crew. First, Jimenez, of course, was arrested on live TV by Minnesota State Police. Now, this was during their coverage, of course, of what's going on in Minneapolis, covering the protests, covering the aftermath, just basically just trying to report on what's going on. They're literally doing their jobs. But as you're going to see, of course, it doesn't actually matter if you're out there doing your job. If you get even in the way of police, even if you're asking, hey, where do you want us to go? That's not good enough. You're going to get arrested. Take a look.
We can move back to where you'd like. We can move back to where you'd like here. We are live on the air at the moment. This is the four of us. We are one team. Just put us back where you want us. We are getting out of your way, so just let us know. Wherever you'd want us, we will go. We are just getting out of your way when you're advancing through the intersection. So just let us know, and we got you.
You are arresting him live on CNN. We told you before that we are with CNN.
So, hey, look, wherever you want us to be, we don't want to be in your way. We'll move. Just tell us where you want to go, or where you want us to go. We are from CNN. We told you we're from CNN. It doesn't matter at all. They were arrested, gone. 100% compliant, zero crime. Again, we have camera footage of him getting, basically walked away. And so they didn't care, though. They didn't care. This is authoritarianism. This is fascism. We have a First Amendment that says freedom of the press. I don't give a damn if they're following orders. And that's what they say. Like later on, Jimenez talks about his experience. And he says, look, they led me away. And I asked the officer, why am I getting arrested? And he says, I don't know. Like that's the order. I was just given orders. I'm just following orders. Now, of course, that's never a good excuse for doing something that violates someone's civil rights. But literally, that was their answer. I don't know. So somebody just gave me, they gave me an order and I did it. That means violating, CNN's First Amendment rights, or Omar's First Amendment rights. And by the way, there's another reporter, Josh, I forget his last name, who was a white reporter. Well, I mean, he didn't get arrested. Kind of weird how that works out. But look, it's not the first time a reporter has been arrested, by the way. It's happened in Ferguson. It's happened in Standing Rock. It's happened in many other places. It's just, I think it might be one of the first times, at least that I've seen in my lifetime, that a member of corporate media was arrested for literally doing nothing, right? So, of course, they got a lot of backlash on this. And so, in order to try to minimize that or mitigate that, I want to give you a tweet here from the Minnesota State Police. Uh, Basically, this tweet was like, "Oh, I didn't know there were reporters. Golly gee, what? Like, I didn't know there were journalists. Nobody told me. Sorry, our mistake." Quote: In the course of clearing the streets and restoring order at Lake Street and Snelling, 4 people were arrested by State Patrol troopers, including 3 members of a CNN crew. The 3 were released once they were confirmed to be members of the media. But he literally had his credentials in his hand. And they told you, hey, we're from CNN. We let you know from CNN. We would like, hey, if you want us to get out of the way, we're more than happy to do that. I mean, it's ridiculous, right? It's very clear out in the open. They were reporters. But then they still have the temerity to say, oops, sorry, we didn't know. Our bad. No, nobody's buying it. In fact, social media, there were a lot of responses on this. Midwin Charles says, we all saw it live. This is not an accurate description of what occurred. Another one says, get bent. We saw what happened. It's true. Another social media user asks, hey, did the mic and camera crew and them saying we're CNN give it away? Should have. Another one said they confirmed they were members of the media before they were arrested. Your tweet is a lie. The entire world saw what happened. Why do you think you can get away with lying? Well, they do have a badge and a gun. That kind of helps. Another one says they showed their credentials before they were arrested. Nice try. They said they were just following orders. So who gave the order? Very, very curious. Very curious. And as one of our own commenters here adds, protesters always carry high-end camera equipment. Easy mistake. Yes, I always carry my, $10,000 camera rig and microphone when I go to smash windows. Yes, exactly. And then Evan here on Twitter says, hey, you can't just SpaghettiOs this one, guys. It's my favorite tweet here. And then one more. You mean to tell me that we did not just witness them identify themselves multiple times as members of the media, but they had to prove their innocence? You won't learn until the city is a smoldering pile of ashes, will you? Scary to think, but maybe. So, again, Jimenez later told CNN, of course, that the officer was under orders. Whose orders? I don't know. Why arrest journalists? I don't know. Did they not understand the PR backlash and nightmare that's going to be? I get that there are officers on edge. And I know Jimenez is like, oh, look, I get it. Everybody's on edge and, all the stuff that's going on. And he's being super nice and super charitable to the police, right? But, no, these orders came in from on high. And not from the grunts on the streets. It was completely unacceptable. So now, Minnesota Governor Tim Walz did apologize later on for this absolute blunder and this violation of First Amendment rights. He said, they clearly had the right to be there. It is never acceptable for this to happen. And yet, it keeps happening. It never should have happened. And you know what? Neither should the death of George Floyd. Police officers, they're out of control in this country. And until we rein them in, this is going to keep happening. Black people, innocent black men are going to die. And even those who, are guilty of nonviolent crimes or alleged nonviolent crimes. This was over a $20 bill that was allegedly counterfeit. People are dying over that. Black men are dying over that. Black men are dying. Black women are dying when plainclothes police officers barge into an apartment and fill it with holes from their guns, and including filling this woman with holes. I mean, it's horrible. It's horrifying what's going on here. And so until we get a handle on our policing and, not just retraining, but changing the entire culture of our police in this country, this is going to keep happening. And innocent people are going to die. And as a result, entire neighborhoods could end up burning. This is not what we want in this country. We have to do better. All right. Speaking of not doing better, let's go to Trump. President Donald Trump just threatened to send the military in to shoot protesters. So now this is on Twitter, Friday morning, just after midnight. Trump tweeted a series of tweets that Twitter had obviously noticed and flagged. And that's, of course, part of why Trump is raging against social media right now. But here's what he said. I can't stand back and watch this happen to a great American city. Minneapolis, total lack of leadership. Either the very weak radical left mayor, Jacob Frey, get his act together and bring the city under control, or I will send in the National Guard and get the job done right. Now, by the way, the governor has already brought in 500 members of the National Guard. So they're already there. So, anyway, this is where it gets really bad. He said, these thugs, all in capital, are dishonoring the memory of George Floyd, and I won't let that happen. Just spoke to Governor Tim Walz and told him the military is with him all the way. Any difficulty, and we will assume control. But when the looting starts, the shooting starts. Thank you. Now, that last part, very, very problematic. Not only like thugs, right? Because notice how they only tend to use the word thug to refer to black people, right? No. What was worse about that, other than the threat of sending in the military to obviously shoot these people, right, is, when the looting starts, the shooting starts. That's from George Wallace, right? George Wallace, this was back in the 60s during the Civil Rights era. George Wallace was an incredible segregationist, right? Deeply, deeply racist man. Ran on a hardcore segregationist policy in the South. So you're going to use that guy's quote? You even have no awareness whatsoever, any awareness of what you're saying? Maybe he does because, look, as we've talked about before, Donald Trump is an old school racist. Now, here's the thing, right? He says, well, I'm not racist. He probably doesn't even think that he's a racist. And that's the thing. He's one of those people that believes in those old racial stereotypes, right? The black people are thugs and they're lazy. And, Mexican people are, lazy and they don't want to work and all that stuff. And black people are more violent. That's why he, of course, took out an entire full page ad, I think in the New York Times during the Central Park 5, right? Saying that we should not only keep them in prison, we should execute them. Because, you know what? They were in the park. They must have done something. They must have been doing something here. Of course, right? Of course. I mean, it's just, again, he's using that quote and it tells you everything you need to know about him. How he and the elites, they value buildings more than they value human lives, by the way. And they value property more than they value human lives. And I'll be damned if Donald Trump actually gives a crap about the memory of George Floyd. He doesn't. He absolutely doesn't. And so that's it. Now, speaking of what George Floyd had allegedly done, right? He attempted, again, allegedly, to use a counterfeit $20 bill at a local grocery store. So let me tell you a little story, right? Because something similar has happened to me. See, longtime viewers, and you guys might have already heard this story, right? So, um, I once came into possession of a $20 bill that was counterfeit. I didn't know it at the time. I went to a gas station. I broke a 50. I was going to do some laundry that day. Uh, only, I didn't have a washer and dryer at my apartment, so I ended up having to use the laundromat. And, that was pretty normal for me, whereas I was back in 2004, 2005. And so I broke a 50 because that's what I had in my wallet. I spent like somewhere close to $20 on like snacks. I probably even got some gas. I don't quite remember. It was a long time ago. And so I had a 20 and a 10 left. And so I went to the laundromat and I was trying to cash in that 20 for quarters. I had a lot of laundry, right? Don't judge me. So now I remember trying to use these machines, right, to get those quarters. And it wouldn't work. It kept spitting my 20 back out. And so I was like, hey, what's going on? I go to the person at the desk, right, or at the counter, and I said, this 20 doesn't work. I need some quarters so that I can do my laundry, right? So there's something wrong. Maybe there's something wrong with your machines. She takes the 20. She, looks at it, examines it pretty closely, and she says, well, here's your problem. It's fake. It's a counterfeit. I said, no, there's no way. I just got that from the gas station. So at that point in my life, I've never seen a fake bill before, right? I had no idea what to look for. I didn't know what would make it fake, right? So I was like, okay, so what do I do with it? And she's like, I don't know. Take it back to the gas station. You can't use it, obviously. So I did. I went back to the gas station and, I said, hey, look, I was just here. I broke 50. Here's this 20 is fake. I just tried to use it. And I was told that this was a counterfeit bill. And so I kind of argued with them for a minute. And I'm like, look, at the end of the day, I don't really care. Yes, it sucks that I'm out $20. I don't want this. I don't want to carry around fake money. This isn't, it's useless to me. You can take it. You can do it whatever you like with it. I am not going to have this, right? Destroy it. It's useless. I left the store. I went back to the laundromat, right? 10 minutes later, state troopers rolled up. They were looking for me. The lady at the gas station called the police on me for having that money. And so, look, I was not happy about that. And later on, I actually went back to that gas station because there was two people that were working there, right? And it was after I spoke to the police officers. I was like, hey, you guys called the cops on me? I was like, what the hell? I didn't do anything wrong. Like, I was trying to, here, like, take it. I don't want it. It's fake. Here it is. And so I don't know why she called the cops on me. And the other, younger woman that was working at the counter at the time, she's like, I'm so sorry. She offered to give me $20. And I was like, no, you keep your money, right? I'm not interested. All I wanted to do is just, hey, make sure that it's not on me for doing that, right? I didn't, make that money. I have no interest in counterfeiting money or anything like that. And so she apologized to me anyway. And the other one, of course, obviously didn't. And so I talked to the police and they're like asking me questions, of course, normal, right? Nobody put a knee on my neck. Nobody tried to arrest me or pin me down. No, even as angry as I was, they were nice. They were being very cordial, right? And so that's the difference. My experience with that is about the same as, or should have been the same as the experience that, or I should say George Floyd's experience should have been the same as mine, right? Just to, hey, what's going on? Where'd you get that? And okay, we're going to look into it. Here, we'll take it. We'll take it from the store, and we'll get rid of it. We'll destroy it and we'll look into it. All right. So look, I'm out $20, but at least I'm not out with my life, right? At least I still have my life. At least I wasn't choked to death by somebody's knee. And again, that is the difference. And that is actually white privilege in action. I was given the benefit of the doubt, unlike George Floyd. So now, if Donald Trump, going back to him, if he actually gave a crap about George Floyd, he would go after the police officers and the culture in policing, and he would crack down. Look, yesterday, I remember talking about this report from 2006, the FBI bulletin, saying that there are white supremacists that are trying to infiltrate police officers, and that maybe we should do something about it. We should look into white supremacy in America. Republicans have been systematically against doing that the entire time, right? It's since then. In fact, they're incredibly protective of white supremacist groups, making sure that the FBI does not look into them. And so that's the problem here, right? Donald Trump doesn't care about what happened to Floyd. Doesn't care at all. No, he cares about protecting his white supremacist friends. And that's what it is, because he is an old school racist and he believes in a lot of the same things that they do. Okay. And so as far as, look, those tweets are concerned, right? So now Twitter deemed one of those tweets as a violation of the platform's rules and called it glorifying violence, which is true. That, of course, got under his skin, so he went and posted it on the official White House Twitter account. Official. Twitter got that one too, posting that same notice. And so we don't know what's going to happen, right? I can only imagine the frothing rage that has consumed the president in the White House right now. But overall, to the point, it is really disturbing, right, that we have a president who is echoing segregationist, quotes, right, and threatening the lives of people there. All in order to protect what? Merchandise in buildings. Merchandise, by the way, that can be replaced. Buildings can be rebuilt, but human lives, you can't replace those. You can't replace those. And yet we have an elite in this country that doesn't care at all about human lives and only cares, again, about money, about merchandise, about material things. That's our president. All right. Social media is quickly spreading the video of a black-clad man holding an umbrella who smashed in the windows of a Minneapolis AutoZone. Now, the man is somebody that a lot of people are saying could be a police officer or an agitator. And again, he was seen smashing these windows before being challenged by protesters. In fact, I'm going to show you that video right now. We'll take a look.
Part of that's good. I zoomed in. I'll zoom out a little bit. Those cops will come for you if you're pulling that crap.
Looks like, yeah. So you can see the AutoZone.
I just came with a hammer and smashed the windows.
I'm gonna fight you right now.
You wanna go? What's up? Somebody hold my blunt.
Hey!
Somebody hold my blunt. I'm gonna keep it up. Hey! Are you a cop? What's up?
All right, a few things. One non-substantive point. I like the guy in the pink shirt. He's all like, hold my blunt. Nice. Pizza in one hand, blunt in the other. And he's like, oh, yeah? You want to go? You just smashed some windows in. Why'd you do that? Okay, I love it. Again, non-substantive, but let's go to the substance, right? So a lot of people are trying to figure out who this guy really is. And so there's a theory going on, and I don't know if it's true, but this is what's going on, and there's not a lot of evidence to it, to be fair, right? But you have people saying that it could be an officer named Jacob Peterson. So now let me give you the comparisons here. So on the left, obviously, Jacob Peterson. On the right, you have the. Honestly, I can't really tell. He's got a mask on. I can't tell at all. But that's just me, right? And so a lot of people are saying though that this is the guy. This is definitely the guy. I don't know. And I think it'd be kind of irresponsible for me to say, yes, that's absolutely the guy, right? I'd hate to spread misinformation that could have a very negative impact on this man, right? Who could be an innocent person. But that said, could there have been police agitators in the crowd? Absolutely. It's not like it's never happened before. You've had Standing Rock, you have Ferguson. I mean, you name it. Undercover police officers. They have operations to escalate and then use the situation to perform mass arrests. It's happened. It's happened before. It's a very old and it's a very effective tactic. And so let's be honest. Let's be honest. It does absolutely happen. All right. So now the Minnesota police officers at St. Paul specifically are saying, oh, no, not one of ours. Not one of ours. In fact, asked if they know how the umbrella man is not Officer Jacob Peterson, they said, well, he's got an alibi. He's got an alibi. Checks out for that day and time. In fact, Heavy spoke with the supervisor, who apparently was allegedly with him, and they spoke to his colleagues who were with him, according to Steve Linders. Now, this is a public information officer for the St. Paul Police Department. Police say Peterson is being falsely accused. Again, we don't know. In a statement sent to Heavy, Linders wrote that the post accusing Peterson was a false social media post. The man isn't Peterson, he stated, although he didn't use Peterson's name. Now, look, I think that there's certain, at least what we can see of him in the mask, I mean, there's a resemblance. But again, I can't really tell because it's masks. I have a hard time doing it. And maybe some people can see things that I can't. I don't exactly have the best eyesight, and I'll be honest. Now, let's see. Let me give you more of the police statement here. We are aware of the social media post that erroneously identifies one of our officers as a person caught on video breaking windows in Minneapolis. We want to be perfectly clear about this. The person in the video is not our officer. Our officer has been working hard, serving his community, keeping people and property safe, and protecting the right to peaceably assemble. It's unfortunate that people would post and share this untrue information, adding more confusion to an already painful time in our community. Not only that, but they said, we were able to verify where the officer was and who he was with. In fact, he was working as a St. Paul police officer, protecting people and property. Heavy then asked if Peterson would grant an interview. They said, no. He's got an alibi, though. He's got an alibi. So look, I don't believe it. That doesn't mean necessarily that it is the same guy, but it doesn't mean that it's not. So it's a little sketchy, right? If it were him, do you think that they would actually admit it? No, I don't think it would. They're not stupid. They're not going to admit it if it's true. And I don't know if it's true. And I'm stressing that. Now, there's also unverified text messages, purportedly from Peterson's wife, right? Or ex-wife, saying that, hey, wow, that's some of my gear. That's my mask, right? That's my respirator. And so I don't really know. Now, part of this is being, of course, put forward by a man named Dylan Park. Now, Dylan Park shared the text messages and screenshots and said, this is from a close friend in Minnesota or Minnie. There it is. Look, I don't know Dylan Park. I have no reason to trust him, and I have no reason not to trust him. And I also have no reason to trust the police. I mean, there's a lot of sketchy stuff about this, right? If these messages are legit, that would be like stone cold proof that they put agitators in the crowd, which again, this is what happens, right? Everything about this guy, even if he's not a cop, is suspicious. He looks eerily prepared, like he was planning for this, like brand new hammer, nice respirator, old new black clothing. I mean, he's ready. He's ready. It seems kind of sketchy, and of course, the way that he was systematically smashing those windows, it doesn't look like, I don't know, somebody who is angry about injustice. It looks like somebody who's just trying to create trouble, smashing windows as he goes. Smash, 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 smash. And that's it. That doesn't, I mean, that seems really, really strange. And then, of course, he bails. And then when that guy says, are you a cop? Are you a cop? He says, none of your business. Now, if you were a protester and somebody who's not a cop, wouldn't you say, like, no, screw the cops, or, F the police, right? Wouldn't you say something like that instead of none of your business, and then start attacking people for questioning you? A lot of this is so sketchy. Very, very sketchy. And so I get why people are saying, and I'm one of them, this is really weird. It could be a cop. And so that's what, again, we don't have hard facts, of course. A lot of this is, again, speculation, hearsay. Nothing's been verified yet, so I don't want to be irresponsible about this. But boy, does this smell of cop. I'm just saying. Oh, maybe it's, I mean, of course, you could also say maybe it's Antifa, right? Or it could be somebody who's trying to frame Antifa. Don't know. I don't know for sure. This is one of the mysteries I would love to find an answer to. Who is this guy? Is it really, Mr. Peterson? And if it is or isn't, what's the motivation behind all of this? Is it just to cause trouble? Is it to frame somebody else? I don't know. And I would love to find the answers to that, to find the mystery of who Umbrella Man really is. All right. So I'm going to take a break. We're going to come back. We've got Amy Klobuchar. Is Klobmentum over? I don't know. We'll see. We'll look into it. And then we have good news from Spain. So, fun times. All right. Stay right here. I'll thank some patrons. If there are any super chats or anything like that, I will read those. And thank, of course, channel members as well. So stay right here. Around the Nation. We'll be right back.
Mike Pence.
Why, you're getting nervous, man.
Welcome back to the show, Around the Nation, right here, TYT Nation. Jeff Waldorf here with you. All right, so before we get into patrons, I want to just read this comment here. Let's see. Bosfus DeBrun, whatever, right? I'm terrible with names. Points out that the guy just calmly walks up, smashes windows, calmly walks away. What protester acts that way? He was there for one purpose and one purpose only. It's essentially what I was saying. Just smashing windows. For what reason? In order to cause problems. So, that's a great point. Let's see. Dave Richardson points out, remember that other undercover cop in California that got beat up by other cops because they thought he was an easy target, or that the cop was an implant in a crowd of protesters, possibly looking to incite them. Yeah, I mean, that's what I'm saying. It does happen. Cops do go into crowds to incite people. And then, of course, the police use that as justification to corral people and do mass arrests. We've seen this before. So that's why I don't trust the police. I don't trust the police. But I also got to make sure not to put up misinformation just in case this guy isn't actually in that picture. It didn't actually do it. Because, again, that could cause some serious repercussions on that man's life. If it's not, if he's not that person. So I do want to be very, very careful about this because I do have a platform and I have to be, cautious. I have to be very cautious. Right. All right. So anyway, patrons. So I'm going to thank Rij Bosick and Jennifer Russell. That's patreon.com/TYT Nation. That's you can support independent progressive media. Helps us out greatly. Then I also want to go over to channel members and thank Crypto Mojito and Francisco Lagunas. So it makes me think of Final Fantasy VIII, Laguna. Classic. Very classic. All right. Anyway, it's no longer, nerd out, right? Let's move on. Let's go to Klobmentum. It's possible that Amy Klobuchar's chances for VP just went up in smoke, along with buildings in Minnesota. Now, why do I say that? It's because new information has come out about Klobuchar's record as a prosecutor in Minnesota, and of course, those records are not good. Now, HuffPost explains that Klobuchar had received her start in politics right in Hennepin County, where this is happening, where a lot of the protests and riots are happening right now. Now, she served as a top prosecutor for 8 years, beginning in 1999. And so, you remember, Chauvin has been working there. Derek Chauvin had just recently been arrested today for his role in the death of George Floyd. He's had a 19-year career. And so around the time where Klobuchar was serving as DA, or I'm sorry, not as DA, but as a prosecutor in Minnesota, Chauvin had been a police officer and had actually been the subject of investigations into use of force and, several homicides in the job. Probably not the word for it, but then again, a couple people have died. Suspects have died. And he was investigated several times for them. So now, anyway, while there, they explain, she employed a tough-on-crime approach, pushing, among other things, more convictions of minor offenses like graffiti and school truancy. So now HuffPost points out that that's not exactly outside of the normal thing that prosecutors did back in the 90s. You had Joe Biden with the 1994 crime bill. You had a lot of politicians that were much more, quote unquote, tough on crime. And so she was no exception. Nowadays, oh boy, Not good, right? Because we are overly punitive, overly tough, and we're not interested in rehabilitation, just filling prison seats, prison beds, prison cells. And so now, according to the Washington Post, as county attorney in Hennepin, Klobuchar had a tense relationship with the black community for her refusal to bring charges against police officers in certain cases, including Derek Chauvin. And according to the Washington Post, Klobuchar chose not to bring charges against officers in more than 24 cases where people were killed in police encounters. Not only that, but her office used some sketchy evidence to convict Myron Burrell. Now, Myron Burrell was a 16-year-old that was allegedly involved in the shooting of an 11-year-old girl, and he is currently serving a life sentence. Burrell's co-defendants said that he did not participate in the shooting. And since then, the Associated Press has gone back to look at that case to investigate and now has more questions about the evidence presented. The Burrell case, of course, is, look, it looms large for activists wary of Biden picking her as a running mate, according to the article. Now, you guys know I've reported on this before. She's on the VP shortlist. So she's along with, I believe, Elizabeth Warren, Kamala Harris, and Gretchen Whitmer, as well as Val Demings. I think Val Demings still on the short list. Not entirely sure. And so she's there. And I've said before, it's very likely that he's going to pick her. Now, however, well, I mean, now would be a really, yes, it was a really bad pick before, but it might be even worse now. And so, disaster, right? And it was a disaster before, like I said, because Biden, remember, he got the conservative black vote for people who are over 45, right, in South Carolina. Really, that vote saved his entire campaign. Now, that doesn't mean that black people love Joe Biden, right? Not at all. People under 45, especially black voters under 45, they wanted different candidates than Joe Biden, for sure. And no, one of those candidates was not Amy Klobuchar, right? No, a lot of people wanted Bernie Sanders. A lot of people wanted, Elizabeth Warren, and also you had people that wanted Kamala Harris. Younger people, especially younger African Americans, they were not really hugely in favor of Joe Biden. But again, you had South Carolina, black voters in South Carolina who are more conservative and older, going with the more conservative option in Joe Biden. And of course, because he was with Obama. And so they were not feeling the Klobmentum people under 45, right? And neither was anybody, of course, in Minnesota's black community who, very, very critical of her. In fact, Kenza Haj Musa, spokeswoman for progressive group Take Action Minnesota, said that Klobuchar's actions as prosecutor, quote, caused trauma that is long-lasting. With everything that's happened in Minneapolis and across the country, she said, Klobuchar would put Biden at even more of a disadvantage politically. This does not work in Amy's favor because she'd had such a strained relationship with that community for years, added another prominent Democrat. Isabella Escalona, spokesperson for a group who fought against increases in Minneapolis' police budget, also adds, quote, she's part of the problem, and we must find community solutions to safety beyond police. So you have, obviously, people in Minnesota, part of those minority communities that are saying, don't do it. She's terrible. Her record is awful. For God's sakes, Joe, if you want the black vote, or at least the one under 45, please pick somebody who is not Amy Klobuchar. In fact, here you have a strategist who asked for anonymity to speak freely, said that Biden, quote, uses all the language of Black Lives Matter and liberal racial justice advocates, but you have to look at what a person does. Picking Klobuchar, given the record she has, especially in this moment, seems like nothing less than an admission that he doesn't seriously care about these issues. Well, I could have told you that already. But again, I am biased against Joe Biden, to be fair, because I've looked at his record, and his record is also pretty terrible. Again, 1994 crime bill, being in favor of more tough on crime laws, being in favor, of course, palling around with segregationists. He's got a terrible record of, serving the black community. He's really lucky that Obama picked him. He really was. That really helped him. But again, he wasn't picked for his relationship with the black community. No, he was chosen in order to make white people feel comfortable. And so he doesn't really need someone else like Amy Klobuchar to, appeal to other white people. And that's what that is. And that's why, of course, there are a lot of African-American, pundits and people like that are saying, you got to pick, and voters as well, you got to pick somebody who's not Amy Klobuchar. You got to pick somebody who is going to appeal to us. And one of those choices they say is a black VP pick, whether it be Kamala Harris or anyone else. Definitely they wouldn't choose Nina Turner, though, which kind of sucks because I would totally love that choice. That would be great. All right. So anyway, as I've said before, disastrous pick if he picks Klobuchar, because again, she's white, she's milquetoast, not progressive at all. But as numerous people pointed out, she's got a terrible record on African Americans and justice, criminal justice, all that stuff. If he picks her, that's a bad sign. Not only does Biden's campaign have no interest in progressives, which we knew already, but also they're going to once again, if they make this pick, take the black vote for granted. And that's going to be a disaster on all sides. This really is Biden's election to lose. I mean, Donald Trump's already a massive, unmitigated disaster. Joe Biden should be able to easily slide and sail into the White House under this, but he seems to be making it really, really difficult to do so. Maddening. Okay. One more here. And we have good news. This is good news. Spanish government has approved the creation of a minimum basic income. Now, according to The Hill, Deputy Prime Minister Pablo Iglesias said that 2.5 million people would be affected by the creation of this minimum income. Now, is it a true UBI, a universal basic income? Not necessarily. However, it is a monthly stipend for the poorest Spaniards. And so this would give every person who was under a certain amount of money 462 euros, or about $500 a month. And so under the decree approved at a cabinet meeting, the socialist-led government would pay a monthly stipend and top up existing revenue for people earning less so that they could get a minimum amount every month. Now, the minimum income would increase with the number of family members to a total of up to 1,000 euros a month. And so that's interesting. And that's a decent amount of money, but not a whole lot, really. It would help, though. And the new program aims to reach about 850,000 households, or 2.5 million people, and will cost the government about 3 billion euros a year. Now, this plan, of course, had come out before COVID-19. However, they were able to at least push it and get this done, thanks, I think, in part to the economic devastation of COVID-19. And so a lot of different places are looking at doing a universal basic income or some sort of stipend in order to help the economy get back on track because of COVID-19. Now, Spain has been hit pretty hard by this. They've had over 27,000 deaths and nearly 238,000 confirmed deaths cases of the virus. It also has one of the highest unemployment rates on the European continent. In fact, they lost 1 million jobs in March alone when the lockdown began, and the Bank of Spain has forecast the economy will contract up to 12% this year. And so they actually do, they're in some serious trouble. And so they do need to do something. So now this brings me to what America's doing, right? The situation in the United States. We now have 40 million people that are unemployed in America, that have filed for unemployment. We may hit 20% unemployment. We might even be there already. According to polling from Data for Progress, a lot of people are in favor of doing something about that, which includes doing what Spain is doing, instituting a UBI. So now let me give you the polling on that, because it's important that we actually, since this is the economic shutdown is not the same as other shutdowns, right? Or our economic issues, not the same as everything else. We actually shut down the economy to save people's lives. So we need to, while we have this shutdown, be able to pay people, be able to give people money so that they can survive and continue to buy essentials and continue to pay bills, things like that. And so you have a lot of Americans that agree with giving people a UBI. In fact, according to polling from Data for Progress, 66% of the American public prefers receiving a recurring payment compared to a one-time payment, which we already have of $1,200, right? So a select group of Americans, because this was means tested old to hell, right? We had a select group of Americans that received $1,200, and that was it. $1,200. That's gone. That's been gone for a while. That's 1 month of rent. Now we've had since March, so several months. Now what are people doing? There's still people out there that cannot get unemployment benefits. The expanded ones, Republicans are already talking about taking it away. And so the American people, not in favor of that. They would rather have a recurring payment as opposed to a one-time payment, which we got in the United States. And in a lot of other countries, by the way, Canada has their own sort of program in which people are getting, money per month, $2,000 per month, right? Or near it. And so now let me give you some more details here. So broken down by party, you had a majority of both Democrats and Republicans to 77 to 52% saying we would rather have a recurring payment per month. Now, the thing that they asked about, the program they asked about, would be a one-time payment of $2,000 and a recurring payment of $1,000 each month. Now, asked whether the people prefer a UBI, right, or a tax credit, right? Because this is one thing that the Democrats love to do, right? Democrats and Republicans, they love handing out tax credits, right? Tax credits, tax credits, tax credit for you, tax credit for you, tax credit for you, right? This is what we do. We're not going to give people a UBI. We're going to give people a tax credit. Remember, this was Pelosi's idea. She said, the leader of the House Democrats says, let's give people a refundable tax credit. You know what? People prefer a UBI over that tax credit. In fact, only 32% of Americans support a tax credit, 37% of independents, and 35% of Republicans. And so you have, of course, a majority saying that they would support a UBI as opposed to a tax credit. And so, look, let's see. Let me give you the numbers here. 2/3 of Americans say a UBI. Yes, please, let's get one of those, right? And we've had, certainly bipartisan legislation that has come out that way. You've had Bernie Sanders, of course, in the Senate, Ed Markey. And then you had, of course, Tim Ryan and Ro Khanna in the House saying we should get a $2,000 a month UBI. However, as I mentioned before, Nancy Pelosi she wanted refundable tax credits. She ended up saying, okay, let's do another round of $1,200, and that's it. Now this is look, this is the thing, right? So she passed this legislation in the House, right? That was not going to get through the Senate. Mitch McConnell said, DOA, dead on arrival. And they still could only do a one-time $1,200 thing. And by the way, if you know it's not going to pass, if you know it's not going to get through the Senate, why not send a message to the American people? This is what we want to do for you. Pelosi has just signaled that she would do the bare minimum of what she could do. Bare minimum. Whereas, again, the majority of the American public says recurring monthly payments of at least $1,000. Now, as for funding this, right? So now they've got a couple of ideas, right? So now one is just increase the deficit, right? Republicans' heads explode whenever you say that. But only Republicans in office, really, as you're going to see from the poll here. Now, there's also minting new currency. For example, Rashida Tlaib says, mint the $2 trillion coin so that we can pay for the UBI, right? So that's something that she can do. And this is an idea that's out there. Another idea is wealth tax. So taxing the richest Americans on just their wealth. All right. So now, what did they say? Well, 42% of all Americans say, no, wealth tax. We'll take it from the rich. 24% say print more money, new currency, and 35% of Americans say, it's okay, let's just add it to the deficit. That's it. Now, the people that, of course, want to add it to the deficit more are ironically Republicans, right? Now, again, they're the ones that scream and cry about the deficit every time there's a Democrat in office, right? I mean, yeah, there's definitely a political motive on that. And so, Democrats gets in office, they scream and cry about the deficit. But when Republicans are in office, they don't care, generally, right? And so Republicans with 43% say add it to the deficit. 32% of Republicans say wealth tax, right? Among Democrats, 50% say wealth tax, and independents say 45%. And so, look, generally, overall, giving people $1,000 a month paid for by a wealth tax on the rich is the most popular position in America and during a pandemic. And we shouldn't be surprised that during a pandemic, during an emergency like we have, you have a larger majority of the American people becoming socialists. It's funny how that works. All right. That's it. That's all we got today. Thank you guys for going around the nation. Please like and share the stream. Please subscribe or become a patron, patreon.com/TYTNation to support independent progressive media. All right. So that's it. Have a great weekend. Stay safe. And we'll see you all on Monday, same time, same place, 3 p.m. Eastern, Monday through Friday. So we'll see you guys later. Have a good one. And remember, change begins with you. Good night, nation. We'll see you later.
Mike Pounds.
Please clap.
Why? Oh, you're getting nervous, man.
Oh, wow, I'm sorry.
Uh-oh, I'm in trouble.
You're kicking me out the door. You're kicking me out the door.